And welcome to the podcast of Rick and Lisa. Lisa is back from a
Yeah.
short vacation-ish. I don't know. I shouldn't say vacation, but not work, not
Right.
podcast
Yeah.
work. So
It was
that's what we
nice.
call it.
It was
Yeah,
relaxing. It was awesome.
right. So we're glad. And then hey, Karen, welcome. Then I was lucky enough to have, Julie Elder, hello and welcome. Connie Moody, welcome. Yeah, I was lucky to have excuse me, a podcast session with Ellie Leonard, if you remember, on Sunday, if you were able to join us. So glad for those that did. Appreciate it. Hey, Nicholas, welcome. And then we'll cancel this little thing out here. And yeah, and we had glad to see you laughing because it's been a scary day. Yes, it has. It has
Yeah.
been a terrifying day. Deborah, welcome. Thank you for joining. We're really glad you're here. Just love it when we get a group together, small or large. It's all good. We're just happy to have you. Hello, Paul P. There was another Paul that joined, so I do
Yeah.
remember that. I know that because that's my middle name. I can remember it. It's easy. Uh, Richard P. Herbst. Patricia, welcome. So, hey, I think we're good, or we're going to get rolling. And yes, to add to the terrifying day theme, there's no end to the news that we could pick from tonight, and deciding on what we were going to focus on in today's podcast. So, where to start? First of all, how are you doing, Lisa? I that's what I want to know.
I'm doing really well in terms of like the regular life stuff, work, everything's great, family's good. That's all that, like, the most important thing is that my family and friends are doing well and my animals. So thank God
Right?
everybody's doing good.
Yeah.
But yes, frightening is, to put it mildly. And there are some notes that I took because I've been listening to this disastrous. I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't watch the meeting that Hegseth and Trump had with the military, with the top
That's okay.
brass.
I got most of
Okay.
it.
I watched clips and, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the whole thing, but I probably should, just to kind of, really dive into it. But today I didn't. I saw clips and I also saw a lot of commentary from people talking about what was said, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. And we have the government shutdown, of course, that we're going to talk about,
Yeah.
which more than likely is going to happen because they only have until midnight tonight.
Right.
And they tried to go to negotiate some more. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and I think Mike Johnson too, right? They all went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just got breaking news, by the way. As we were going live, when I hit the button,
Oh, okay.
there was another vote on a thing that did fail. So it did not. It was just that we're now moving faster
Yeah.
towards that. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but please go on.
No,
Okay,
no,
so
not at all. I mean, that
yeah,
whole thing is just infuriating because one of the things I wanted to talk about not only is the furlough of all of these government employees, of course, it's going to happen.
right.
The thing
Seven
that
hundred and
really
fifty
drives me
thousand.
750,000, and the thing that really drives me crazy is that the politicians, none of their pay gets interrupted, none of their insurance benefits get interrupted. I mean, this is just that is the part that always infuriates me. You want to talk about things that need to be rewritten and restructured in terms
They
of
should be
how.
the first to feel the pain. Yeah,
For
yeah.
real, for
Right.
real. And then on top of it too, and I'm sure you're talking about this as well, I was finishing an article from Reuters where Trump is basically saying, well, this whole thing is going to be the Democrats' fault because now
Yeah.
I am going to be able to do things that are irreversible if they do cause this shutdown to happen.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
the
there's a good
Democrats'
line
fault.
in there. I've got some stuff to talk about with that.
Good.
So
Yeah, because
yeah.
that was right before we got on, and that, like, really made me hit the ceiling.
Want the military to kill us. I want to ask them this question. Yeah, Deborah, my question is, do Republicans in Congress want the military to kill us? I want to ask them that question, and I have an interesting answer, but I wanted to let you finish your thought, and
Yes.
then I'll come right back to that. So,
Okay, actually, it's perfect segue because that is one of the things that I was looking at because th just like a lot of us, we are learning these things as we go, things that people weren't really paying attention to before, which we always should have been paying
but
attention
probably,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, right? So now I feel like, if anything, the result from all of, this huge debacle is going to be more awareness. And, we're on the Rick and Lisa show. We're all about awareness, and we're all about like talking about things. And, you have to start somewhere. This particular thing is extremely terrifying. How Trump was saying during the meeting that he was telling Hegseth about using some dangerous Democratic cities as training grounds for the military. Now, I came across, there's somebody that I follow on Substack, and his name is Angry Male Vet. Now, these of course are just like different snippets and things that I'm,
Right, right,
that you
right.
get, you don't know like how factual they are.
Sure.
However, according to him,
Mhm.
he says that these training sessions have been done before. So this could be what Trump is talking about. And they have done it in cities, and they are called military operations on urban terrain. Now, my question to the angry male vet, though, is anything having to do with Trump, I never trust that he is going to follow any decorum whatsoever. So no
Right.
matter, so even though this has been done before, because basically this person was saying this is all fear mongering. A lot of these left wing commentators, are using this for clicks, and maybe some people are well intentioned and they really don't know. But for the most part, it's all fear mongering. Now, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that because, like I said, when it comes to this administration, there is definitely they don't go by the rules. They do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I wouldn't put it past him to mean what everybody thinks he means. But according to this veteran, he
Yeah,
says that these have been conducted. There's been 5 in the last 10 years. And again, a lot of us don't know anything about it because we're not paying attention unless you're really plugged into the news. They had it in
sure.
Texas, LA, Tampa Bay. The one in Texas, interestingly enough, one of these happened during the Obama administration. And Abbott, it was also coordinated with the governor. It's always coordinated with the governor.
Right.
And at that time,
We
since
know.
Obama was in office,
Right,
this is so ridiculous. Of course, all the right wingers were like, oh my God, Obama wants to declare martial law. He's coming after our guns, all of this stuff. And then, of course,
right.
Abbott leaned into that conspiracy theory and didn't debunk it per se. And he knew damn well that that was all untrue. And this whole operation was legit. And it
Yeah,
had nothing to do with martial law. So basically, just to kind of put that in your mind as well, that
yeah.
it may be what he's talking about, and because Trump is I don't think he's very smart, and I think that he takes a lot of things out of context, and he
Uh-huh.
doesn't understand many things, right? So, it
Right.
is possible that somebody was talking about it, and God knows what came through his mind, and then he's just like diarrhea of the mouth on
Right,
stage, just
right.
saying these things and thinking out loud or whatever.
Sure.
But, again, my last thought on this is I wouldn't put it past him, though, just because this veteran said that it is a legit operation, that these things do get carried out this way.
Right,
I wouldn't put it past Trump to execute it in the way we fear.
right.
Like he's not gonna follow the rules the
Oh,
way they're
oh, yeah,
supposed to be done,
yeah.
right?
No
Come on.
doubt.
We all know.
Right. So there's a couple of different angles I can start off on that. I
Good.
think there was one thing you said, and I said, "Oh, let me get right back to that." About first, it was our viewers' question. Is the military? Does Trump want to kill us?
Yes.
Right. And I don't think it's so much Trump would like to see a culling of the population. I don't think that man has all his marbles in his head rolling around in even remotely the same direction. Or as Jeff Tiedrick might put it, the raccoons have gotten in there and are chewing away at the wires and have completely zapped the computer all to shit. So excuse my language, but I don't like to use it, but the whole thing that, is in play is coming from the mind of a man who I will tell you one thing I saw that struck me it made my meter move, so to speak. My little seismograph really made a big bink in there was when Schumer came out of the negotiations over the weekend with Mr. Trump and said, you know, when we told him, Hakeem
Yes.
Jeffries and I, when we told him that 4 million people were going to get kicked off of the ACA, followed by another 20 million with incredibly unaffordable rate hikes happening, he said he basically didn't know. And so what that infers or implies, I mean, you just can't reach any other conclusion. This is the leader of the United States, the leader arguably of at least he was the free world, and there is no other line to draw other than from that point to loose marbles and his staff keeping him in an insulated bubble of information, which is even more dangerous. And
Mhm.
that to me, like if I looked at President Xi in China, right? And he came out and he said something, I would have no doubt that man will have heard every angle and considered every possibility from the smartest advisors that exist in the land of China. I mean, in the vast 1.3, 1.4 billion people, they've hand selected the best of the best of the best. And I would have no fear, no doubt that if he did make a threat, that threat would be substantiated and it would be based on facts. Now, this guy, Trump, anything but that. Same thing, and you could even roll it back. Like let's go back to Biden. Biden could probably do the presidency in his sleep only because he had so damn many years. Again,
Yes.
sorry for the foul language, but so many years rolling around in the cathedral of government of all the parts of it, all the pieces of it. That's partly why Biden, I think, did what he did or was able to get through to things he did because most of it was probably very routine for him. Now
Mhm.
let's go back to Obama and Bush and Clinton and Bush one, and you go through all of those people and yeah, Bush, GW Bush, not the sharpest tool in the shed, right? I mean, at least that was my impression of him.
Yeah.
Always since day one. I prayed. I think I fell to my knees. I was religious at the time, and went, dear God, please let Al Gore win. But it didn't happen. So anyway, Bush, not the sharpest tool in the shed. Even he would know his limitations. He would go,
Mhm.
wait a minute, I'm only on a believability thing. I'm only a 3 out of 10, right? I need, so I need to ask a lot of people what I'm going to do. And yeah, he had his vice president, what was that guy, Dick Cheney, and he
Yeah,
had his vice
Cheney.
president who was like, the devil manual. He was like the demon manual. He's like, oh, we can fit this one in here. Let's go say Iraq or Iran has the chemical nuclear weapons, right? He did all kinds of crazy shit behind the scenes, but between all of those presidents and all of that time, I felt safer as an American than
True.
I do right at this moment. And I today that speech, just in a nutshell, was really, really the scariest moment I could have possibly dreamed up. And let me come back to it. Right, I want to talk about the shutdown first, but the
Okay.
whole thing with the thing about that him not knowing, it's only his staff. It's either he forgot, which is scary, or it's his staff keeps him in an information bubble, which is slightly more likely, and it is also uh, even scarier than the first problem.
Yes.
So that said, so let's talk some facts here, right? The government shuts down at 12:01 a.m. unless tonight on October 1st. If there is not either one of two things that happens, there needs to be an appropriations bill
Yep.
makes its way through,
The
or a
CR. Yeah.
continuing resolution, right? A
Mhm.
CR is a type of bill that says, you know what, guys, we don't have our crap together. So what we're going to do is we're going to
Kick the
sign this
can
thing
down the
that
road.
says at the current rate we're flowing, we're just going to keep flowing. And then we'll come back to it before hopefully the next deadline we set and resolve it. That was what last year was all
Mhm.
about. By the way, 24 was a gigantic cluster of continuing resolutions, one after the other, and then earlier this year. So, what is to take away? I think we said once there is immediately about 750,000 jobs that are immediately furloughed, and you probably wonder, well, where is that going to hit? Is my Social Security check going to come? We like to bring it down to the ground level view here for those of us that have to live life,
Yep.
right? So it really comes down to this, and I'm looking down. Sorry, I need to do this. The national parks and the Smithsonian museums, okay, they're going to close. Not a big deal. IRS tax refund processing and the audits are pausing. I guess that gives one group relief, and then the other stress because if you have tax refunds coming, they're not probably going to do it. Small Business Administration. This one is really gets
Yeah.
me because I
Yeah.
have twice owned my own business and I have been in the situation where I've relied on the SBA for something. And both times they have not only been so slow, I could have measured the speed of a fence post against what they were doing. They were very unhelpful and they had a lot of attitude. But regardless of my complaints about that, the one thing I wouldn't want to be is sitting in a position waiting for loan approvals as a small business owner to get through, and those are going to be choked up. So I say that to the people who are in business out there that that's a big deal. Oh, and this next one, FAA air traffic control delays. They have to strip
Yeah.
already short staffed. This is where I go, wait a minute. If you don't have enough people now, what are you going to cut? But there are apparently air traffic control delays because critical safety staff will stay on, which makes me nervous. And I'll tell you what, I have no flights booked at all right now
Same.
in my future. There's none. Essential operations will continue. Things like social security, Medicare
Yeah.
payments, those
Thank
will
God.
happen, but the risk is that they'll be delayed. And as this unfolds, the risk dynamically changes. Okay, so I want to tell you right up front, as my friends and as people who I am advocating for and thinking about, that both of us look at it and go, as we know and as we find out more about how and how much delays might be involved in those social security checks or other check income processing or reimbursement processing, we'll let you know. Active military pay does continue. So if you are in the active military or know somebody who is or are relying on somebody who is. And then last, this is one really frosts me because it's ICE operations are going to continue. Border security
Of
is still
course.
funded, and ICE operations and sweeping ICE raids will not pause, not even slow down. And that, when I heard that, I almost jumped out of my chair in anger. I had a moment of just Rick Fury where I was screaming into walls, but I just had like, you got to be kidding me. Out of all of this and this chaos, this is okay. Here is the anger level is the fact that the senators and Congress people, the House representatives, get their own pay, benefits, et cetera, uninterrupted through a government
Hmm.
shutdown. And then just about up here off camera is my anger level at the fact that ICE raids somehow they've got the money for that. So it's a really, really what type of situation. And how this is how they have been absolved of getting that uh, from being cut. I'm just beyond words about. So anyway, that's it. So the other thing, the big deal here too, is about these job cuts, right? Um, all the whale of the whale. The the Office of Management and Budget, which is probably the most boring
Yeah.
acronym you can think of, right? Management and budget. What does that do, right? Well, let me tell you what that does. That's Russell Vought's dream job. So who is Russell Vought? He is like the master architect behind Project
Project. Mm.
2025,
Hmm.
which and who has advocated for. There are many parts to Project 2025. You can almost point in any direction of anything that's happened at all that has come through an executive order and through the hands of Stephen Miller to Donald Trump since January 20th, and you can go, okay, that has a place, a corresponding checkbox in the Project 2025 game playbook. And so this is one of these times, right? We've talked in this show, and Lisa, you know this bit. It is the part about accelerationism. Like
Yeah.
Elon Musk used to talk about it. I know Peter Thiel's probably talked about it. This accelerationism has to do with how do we, dead stick the government, the aircraft into the side of the mountain as fast as possible to bring down the internal workings and vastly reduce the capabilities of the federal government. This is what they want for us.
Yep.
And when we talked about that, when we talked about doing things that would accelerate the demise of the federal government. It is done under this vision in Project 2025 of going back to what they call true self government, true small government. And conservatives, Republicans have paraded that one around for decades. We all had this image. If you grew up in the Gen X time frame, you have the image of the Western cowboy. When Ronald Reagan got up and gave his thing about you want your government to leave you alone. Well, let me tell you, I've got this is what I want to do. It never happened. He made it
No.
bigger and fatter, and
Yeah, he did.
but and it continued for the next 30 years that way. But that okay, so it is what it is. But that there was this mythology around small federal government, without taking into account the fact that small government had become big because of the social contracts it had made with the people it governed. It was now not just about the rule of law, the regulation of goods, the regulation of trade, the regulation and oversight of the markets. It wasn't just about that anymore. When FDR got up and made the
Mhm.
Four Promises speech, and he said, "We're going to give you freedom from want. We are going to give you freedom from worry if you lose your job, if you need health care." Those were social contracts we all entered into, and that's one of the big things to bring this back to the reality check that you've got to make when you start talking about eliminating a bunch of jobs, and that's what Russell Vogt really there is. If you ask these guys to produce some sort of graph or chart or even high level summary of just give me a pencil drawing, please, of what this is supposed to look like when we're done. It was like when Musk went in the beginning in January after January 20th. He started just indiscriminately shooting people like the first time a CEO with an overactive imagination got his job, right? He just wandered in and started demanding access to systems. It was clear he
Mhm.
wanted data. He wanted to
Yeah.
take that, guys. Remember, we talked about that. But he also didn't know how to cut jobs. He did not know how to treat it. If he wanted to treat government like business, you first start in and you ask the question, how does this work?
Mhm.
How do things get done now? And then you do an analysis of, okay, again, they call it a gap analysis. You say, yeah, I want to get from here to here. What's in the way? And then they actually start executing that thing in a sensible way that doesn't disrupt payments. And instead, what we were seeing, and this is a common corporate situation, we saw heroics, a lot of very dedicated, lifetime career civil servants who actually deeply care about you getting your paycheck and Social Security and your Medicaid and Medicare benefits. Those people worked 50, 60, 70-hour weeks to pull together and bring the services to the people that they the best that they could. And it was unfortunately the people at the bottom that got crapped on the most, and Musk walked away scot-free. Now what
Mhm.
we're talking about right here, right now, is that OMB director, Project 2025 mastermind, Russell Vogt, who's a quiet guy until you look him up on YouTube, and you really got to hunt him down because he's kind of hard to squeeze. He's squirrely to find. And listen to the guy talk and just what a radical extremist he
He is.
actually is. Okay. Once you've got that in your head, and then you go, oh, he's the guy that wants to take these 750,000 jobs and make those cuts permanent.
Yep.
Permanent. Permanent. Let that sink in for a minute. So that would be like going on a permanent government shutdown. This is the basic rationale that Hakeem Jeffries, the Democrats, Chuck Schumer, all of them, they all went through this thing and said, wait a minute, we have two options here. Either we let it happen or it happens anyway. Either way, what do we end up with? We end up with a non-functioning government with 750,000 fewer people in it. But what we don't end up with, friends, is that we don't end up with an accounting, a set of numbers that tells us, okay, for all that pain that you just inflicted, what was the benefit excuse me, for heck's sake. So that is really the moment where my BP goes up, 500 over 100 or whatever, but it goes up, and it's because it's so outrageous. It is
So
so
you're
outrageous,
saying
friends.
Sorry. So you're saying the accounting, meaning like the record? Like we won't.
How much? No, yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
Thanks
no,
for
no. That's
catching
okay.
me on it. Sometimes I say
Yeah.
things the way my brain's wired, I'm in a business scenario when I say it, so
Not
I
a
don't always
problem.
think it out. I don't always translate it. But the accounting boils down to for everything that I ever did in corporate, it was always like, show me either kind of what's the revenue raise, how much more money
Mm,
are we going to get,
mhm.
or how are we staying in business and competing with our side things. Are we getting into a new business or getting out of a business that we used to not be doing stuff that we used to do, or doing stuff that we want to do that we're not doing today, or getting out of stuff we did yesterday and we
Right.
don't want to do tomorrow? And then the last piece of that accounting sentence is how much money is going out and,
Mhm.
and, and really going to be cut from the bottom line. How much do I lower taxes is the simplest way to put that statement. I just realized I could have avoided all that blustery wording and just cut it to that. How much of a refund do I get to send to all of the American taxpayers
Right.
out there right as soon as this starts? Because it's going to cost that much less, right? That
Mhm.
one big beautiful bill should, with this reduction in staff,
Mm,
it should pay for itself. The heck with these tariffs. Why do we even need
right.
it? Because by that point, we'll have eliminated most of the workforce and all of the things that they do that cost money to the government. It's not just their salaries, it's what they touch, because
Mhm.
you can't redistribute it to other people. At 750,000, the wheels would just fall off the train. They'd be gone. So you can't give all that work to somebody else. If you follow me so
Yes,
far,
yes,
am I making
absolutely.
sense? Okay, and friends, if you understand, and I do hope you accept or forgive me for my ways of explaining things sometimes are a little obtuse, but
No, it's
hopefully,
great.
hopefully Lisa catches me here and says,
Yeah.
"Yeah, what was that?" So let's look at what the outside in economic impacts are, right? So what does this do to the American economy? And for a gigantically huge multi-trillion dollar economy that we have, in other words, we generate billions and billions of dollars every minute, right, in the day. This a government shutdown costs roughly $1 to $2 billion per day. So that's not a number to over-index on, because it is out of the whole thing. You got to look at what it is actually, where it matters in the numbers that we try to track here in the Rick and Lisa show. We look at what's the effect on the GDP, and the GDP of our country will go down by significant, like single digit percentage points, and that will say to the world, this is how much smaller the market is here in the United States. And it's a thing to think about, because as we shrink, then the production of things around us in the world also shrinks, and their economies also slow down. Everything is related to everything else. I said this I said this back in January to my wife over the breakfast table one time. I was so confident. I'm like, oh no, Trump's going to get squeezed by all the other economic forces in the world. He's going to have to play ball. There's just no way. And she's like, this guy,
Yeah,
and she was right. And
she was right.
as always, she was right. She's not. We talk things through. So it's one to 2 billion. There's a huge risk of legal battles if Russell Vogt has his way. There's a lot of institutional knowledge risk and loss. That was another big point that I wanted to highlight. When you see 750,000 people, you can assume they're the more experienced people that know how to keep the bus rolling down the road and stopping at the stoplights and starting when you press on the gas. Service backlogs that'll probably pile up in 2026. So don't expect your tax refunds this year to be quick. Uh, Unextended, they're called PTCs, and they're something. I forget what the P is, but it's tax credit. It's basically to add about 100 billion in uninsured costs over a decade. That means for us in the regular class, if we depend on Obamacare, ACA, whatever way you want to call it, they're all the same. That means that in aggregate, all of us together, we will have about $100 billion of added debt on our butts at that point, because these are the emergency room visits and procedures we can't pay for.
Mhm.
These are all the other debts that get attached to us the minute if we get admitted to the hospital under emergency care. All of those things happen, and that's about estimated at 100 billion to the end of the year. And then right now, there's in Vegas, at least the last time I checked before the broadcast here, in Vegas, believe it or not, they're taking bets on the shutdown. And guess what?
Ugh,
It's at 86%. At least it's probably it ups and downs almost every minute, but it was at 86 right when I punched the go button on it. I had it on my screen and I closed the window, but I don't know what it is right this minute, but it was 86, and it'll probably stay that or go higher for midnight. So, okay, there is a short, what's the possibility of a short shutdown? Very, very, very small at this point. As we're heading into on Eastern time, 8:05. Most of these senators and representatives want their bedtime no later than 9, especially the Republicans. And I'm just kidding. I don't know. But anyway, they'll, I'm sure, probably negotiate something till some time, and then at midnight, walk
mhm,
away and go to
mhm,
bed
mhm.
and let everything go. So that was my thing. Does anybody have, and I apologize if you have any burning questions or things like that. I want to get to the question about does Hegseth, or does Trump want to kill us all with his military? And I've got that queued up to talk about next. So
Good.
yeah, Deborah J. Mega lies. That's a pretty good. What about the promised Rick national debt going down? Yes, yes. You know what? So there's two things there. There's two parts to this. There's the national debt, and then there's the national deficit, and we tend to get these confused. But they're both important numbers. And Christina, your question is really great. So I want to just spend a minute on it, and not much more than a minute. So maybe more explanation will be needed later. But national debt is the total amount of what we'll call our big contract of debt that we have to pay back. Right now, I just checked on the Treasury's website, and we just you clocked by $37 trillion. Remember how they said, oh, it's going to raise it to 34? No. What we ended up doing was Trump, almost in a scary way, made everybody on his team spend and borrow the actual money, force the transactions through the treasury to get the cash in for the bumps up in revenue that they want. So they had to, the treasury goes to the Fed, they borrow money, there's a bunch of things that happen. That's where the deficit comes in. That's the other side of this, which is the yearly amount we are over or under the amount of revenue that we take in. And of course, we are way over with the tax cuts that were given, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act extension from 2017 that actually was turned into the one big horrible bill. That, friends, is money that's already been now plucked off the tree and that we owe back. It's like almost like they came to us and said, well, we're going to do this, but it's going to be over 10 years. And as soon as they got it through, they ran off back to the bank and said, all right, we need that money right now, put it in our accounts. And they spent, and they're spending, especially DHS is at the front of the pack here, Department of Homeland
Of
Security,
course.
ICE, all those guys. They have borrowed the largest amount of actual cash. And that's why our debt is now at 37 trillion, which means if it's at 37 trillion, our deficit has to be as high or higher for this year than what we would have planned otherwise. And that's because they went and got the money that said they were going to spend over 10 years to load it up front and spend it out as fast as they could, because they think they're going to lose badly in the midterms, and they don't want to lose the power of being able to grab that money and have it rescinded. That's an important part. Rescinded means taken back, because if the Democrats win, yeah,
Mhm.
they can start paring that tree back of the allocated funds. It's just sort of like how we're in this mess right now with the shutdown. The one big beautiful act, the bill act, it passed. That didn't mean the money got spent. So now these are the actual spending things. Okay, let's talk something else. Uh,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
and please leave your questions in there. a minute is fine. Okay, thank you. I hope that made sense. Let me first look at the time. Okay, good. We're pretty good.
Yes.
So today, 800 senior military officers gathered from all over the world in one
Hmm.
of the biggest security nightmares you could possibly imagine, and in a theater at in a conference, but I don't know what you call it, auditorium type thing maybe, at Quantico military
Yeah.
base and a naval base, a Marine Corps base. Sorry, I don't want to say that wrong. In Virginia. It was hastily convened. It was a mystery meeting, was what they were calling it in uh, military circles, in a lot of military circles. It was a 45 minutes of speech. And here's the thing: this was Hegseth, who's an alcoholic, who's accused. But among other things, he's been unfaithful to his wife. He's apparently he's made hits on minors. The times, he's done a lot of really despicable crap that all came to light before he got before he got
Hmm.
the job. He's unqualified. He's a Fox News weekend host.
Majorly
He is
unqualified.
a National Guard. I'm not putting down the National Guard, but I'm saying he wasn't like,
Uh,
okay, this guy's
yeah.
done 3 tours in Iraq, and Afghanistan, and he's been around since 9/11. No, no, no. He's a little fart that just appeared and poofed into existence and then disappeared out of the military at about that speed with a bunch of. This is the same. One of my bosses at Bridgewater used to say, "Everybody's." I'm going to swear. Everybody's got a fucking opinion, and he said it with a Brooklyn accent, and that guy was right. He, which is Hegseth, has an opinion, and that opinion is horseshit. It's not informed. It's not battle tested in real theaters. It's not anything other than him being a major and being a whiny. Once again, here, what's the same theme about this guy and everybody else in MAGA? Full of grievances. And he gets up in front of 800 men and women,
Highly qualified.
highly qualified. Yes,
Hmm.
thank you, Lisa. Highly qualified men, and this little fart, tells these men and women with thousands of combined years of experience that they need to shave their beards and they need to do pull-ups and push-ups and pass physical standards. And oh, by the way, let's infuriate everybody. Let's make sure there are no women in combat roles because women are givers of life, I quote, and therefore do not belong, in warfare scenarios, which is about as full of it as I possibly could imagine. I read it, my eyes popped out of my head. I had to shove them back in with pliers. I did. I was unbelievably thinking. Now you're gonna love this, right? So I got to thinking about it. What did he say? So the first part, let me give you the overview. First was the warrior ethos. He
Yes.
said, he called for a return to an apolitical, hard-charging culture focused on winning major theater wars. He's not talking to a group of privates. He's talking to top brass. Okay, like World War II, which of course we haven't been in since what? World War II. Yeah, reference Patton's speech, decrying decades of decay from quote woke leaders that softened the force. He urged officers to embrace no nonsense leadership because before they were embracing nonsense leadership. They just go out and act like Bugs Bunny when they left
Right.
their offices. All these seriously highly paid trained officials, no shit. Anyway, reviewing definitions of quote toxic leadership, bullying, and hazing to empower commanders without fear of complaints, and pledged to overhaul the inspector general process to end quote frivolous or anonymous reports that he said protected underperformers. Quote, leading warfighters towards uncompromising standards is not toxic. If there's anything toxic, my
Yeah.
friends, that is toxic. So clean shaven, I've talked about grooming standards. Enforcing uniformity was central with Hank says banning beards, long hair. Wow. Okay. God, my face. Anyway, anti-woke language. He rallied against woke garbage, vowing to eliminate, quote, identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses, climate initiatives, and gender delusions. He ended race and gender-based promotions, calling them historic so-called firsts, and boasted of removing, quote, social justice and toxic ideological garbage. But borrowing from memes, he added adversaries with FAFO, which is F around and find out. And we became the woke department, not anymore. We're done with that shit, end quote. Okay, women in combat roles I've already talked about, so I won't, I just, there's a bunch. So I want to jump down to my other comparison here. The Patton movie scene, right? This is when he started talking and I was watching it. I went, where the hell is this from? A man standing in front of a gigantic flag. Well, it's from a movie. It was a 1970 film called Patton. It was directed by
Mm.
Franklin Schaffner, and the opening sequence depicts General George S. Patton, real life
Hmm.
actual thing that
Yes.
happened, played by George C. Scott, delivering a fiery, profanity laced motivational speech to the assembled U.S. Third Army troops with the American flag, ginormous one, draped behind him on the stage. So, pardon me while I put to my audio visuals here. And he was going around about decrying cowardice and glorifying aggressive combat. He said, quote, Patton said this: "No bastard ever won a war by dying for his country. He's going to get it with the yardstick he measures off with, and vows no retreat, inspiring the soldiers for D-Day invasion. The scene sets the tone of an unyielding martial flavor, right? Or fervor, excuse me." And I thought, wow, that this guy is actually literally living a movie scene out in his own dreams. He was a major in the National Guard. I'm not putting the National Guard down at all. My highest respect goes to these
Right.
folks, right, for their service. But
Right.
I'm saying compared to active Army being deployed in foreign land or in foreign bases or into military conflict zones that are hot, like these generals,
Yes.
that's a whole different level of dust on your boots, like they say in the
Hmm.
military, than if you are talking about, just lecturing a bunch of privates whose this is their fifth week. The whole Patton speech was designed to take a bunch of cooks, a bunch of people who had, privates, people never seen combat, to motivate them to give their lives for their country. And they did. That was
Right.
before D-Day.
Right.
And if you remember, that was a huge setup. So this whole thing today was a big performative art pile of bullshit. And it angers me. It angers me because it's disrespectful. First
It
of
is
all, the
disrespectful.
time of
Yeah.
all of the people there. Do you think that couldn't have been done in a fucking Zoom meeting? Excuse me for that, but or Microsoft Teams. Take your pick. I'd even loan them my account if the money's a problem. It costs what, $12.95 a month for a Microsoft One account. Anyway, whatever. But so the a lot of that stuff was really, really useless. And these reactions largely said that this was a divisive and reductive, meaning it diminished
Yeah.
everything, prioritizing optics, how things look over strategy. On the quote warrior ethos, Marine Elliot Ackerman called it, quote, an insane insult to senior officers with far more combat experience than Hegseth, who has, quote, a lot more dust on his boots, on their boots, being the generals. Retired General Mark Miley warned it, quote, it, quote, risks alienating diverse talent that strengthens our forces, stressing unity over division. Military historian Elliot Cohen dismissed it as the mindset of, quote, a not terribly successful major focused on push-ups and its aggressiveness, ignoring
Hmm.
complex modern warfare. The clean shaven mandate drew criticism for potential morale hits and religious conflicts. Oh, by the way, Admiral James Stodarvis called it outdated for non combat roles, while the Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR, KAIR, demanded exemptions for Muslims, Sikh, and Jewish personnel under First Amendment protections. Retired Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson lambasted the anti woke tone as eroding trust and recruitment, saying firing diverse leaders like General C.Q. Brown signals, quote, dissent or diversity initiatives are unwelcome. Overall, the experts, like those in Reuters, noted that the speech bluntness could deepen the rifts in a force already facing huge retention issues. So, my friends, this was not a good thing. So, Lisa, I'll stop and pause and say, if you would like to talk for a minute, please
Yes.
give us just your thoughts are here.
Well, basically, what I talked about earlier with Angry Melvet and other people that don't like, because we don't like the clickbait fear mongering either, but
Right,
there are
right.
certain things that if there's something that may be alarming, it needs to be called attention to, and we need to talk about it. And like I said before, I don't put it past these people at all. I actually don't trust them to follow decorum or tradition at all, and we've seen evidence of this.
Right.
Now, in terms of, the question that was asked, like, does Congress want the military to kill American citizens? Unfortunately, I
I
feel
never
that,
got to that. Sorry.
yeah, no, 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 no. That's a the only thing that is alarming to me also is Congress, political leaders, and many people in this country, because our memory is not the memory of those that went through the General Patton era, like my
Yeah.
grandfather did. He was
That,
actually
oh
in
my
his army.
gosh. That's a
Yeah,
totally
he
different
was
thing.
under Patton, and they went in through Sicily. But so we have no idea, and all those people are gone. I remember my grandfather telling
Yeah.
me stories, of that time period, living through the Depression, because he was in the States by then.
Right.
Um, it, Not that people are downplaying it, but it's almost like they're not. There's no imagination to 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 think that we may get to a certain part. I mean, these are not pretty things to think about. I get it. I understand. But my worry in terms of this training ground and the, dangerous democratic cities rhetoric
Hmm.
is because that's what it is. Also, it's rhetoric. And then when it actually happens on the ground, what is it going to take? Like, what is the flashpoint going to be? If you have the National Guard military troops filled with all of this nonsense from Hegseth and Trump, and just an American citizen to do something out of turn. You see what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like, what could possibly, not that I'm saying that it will happen, and I hope to God it doesn't, but at this point in this climate that we're in, it's very worrisome. And I think that this is something that people, I do, because Pritzker and Mayor Johnson had a two and a
Yeah.
half hour press briefing yesterday.
Yeah. Speak
And
to us
they
about Chicago. Right.
Yes, and they keep repeating this, and everybody is on the same page. Everybody says, like, "Don't give them an excuse.
Yep.
Protest and exercise your rights peacefully." Everybody knows that. But with the highly charged atmosphere that we're in now, that
Yeah.
has been the culmination of the last 10 years, really. It's like this has not all happened overnight, and that's really what I worry about. Everybody knows in the back of their mind that we don't want to give them the excuse, but this is getting very dangerous. And especially now they're deploying 100 more troops, military troops into Chicago. That's what this whole situation was, this press conference that they did last night, Pritzker and Johnson. And they are supposed to, I guess they're supposed to be helping the ICE officers with these mass deportations, and
Right.
it's going to be such a mess. They're already crawling all
So
over downtown.
I really, really want to bring up a couple things that I think are, let's bring the temperature down a little bit and talk about what I think also happened today, which affects directly what you're talking about. And that is this: the the very nature of, that phrase, showing your ass. And I think that's exactly what happened today with Hegseth in front of the sum of the actual parts of the military that matter. He does not matter. His makeup studio in the Pentagon does not matter. His clown show of advisors do not matter. And it is, I can feel I have some stuck in my throat. It is the proof in the pudding when that man got up and started talking today about, warrior ethos and clean shit. That his eyeballs are not anything but what the Department of Defense, Secretary of Defense, should be focusing on. He should be engaged in strategy. He clearly lacks the mind for it. So what I am going to say next may be controversial, but I will say it nonetheless. I truly believe, after the experience of being yanked from your command, flown halfway around the world to Quantico to sit in a packed theater to listen to some little shit major lecture you who got appointed into that position, not earned it,
Mhm.
that you need to do all these anti-woke things and that you need to start focusing on militaries, potentially doing exercises in cities. I think the resolve in that room, because of the reaction at the end of it, was total silence.
Yeah.
There wasn't a freaking peep. So when I talk about that, I'm saying today was the day when the Army effectively set the timer on the day, hour, and minute. I believe they'll just defect. They'll just, whatever the word is that goes in there where they rebel and refuse to follow orders based on sheer stupidity, because
Yeah.
Trump not only got up, it wasn't just Hegseth that showed his ass. Trump got up right behind him, and those generals, many of whom have had the pleasure of never seeing Donald Trump, but being able to tune out whatever the crap is on the bases and in the facilities and in the ships and submarines and so forth. They don't have to listen to it, and they're thankful. Today, they were forced to sit through it. And I tell you this, I believe every last one of them knows damn well. And I look at those men and I respect the hell out of them. And I don't think any veteran here on this show, and I'd love to hear from you. In fact, I'd love to have you on so we can talk
Yes.
about it.
Mhm.
But I don't think any veteran here could say, yes, those men at that level could sign up for doing the dumb thing or the stupid thing or the politically charged thing. So I think it was actually a good day for the cities, and the cities, this nonsense of I'm going to call in the National Guard. It's a performative stunt. It always has been to Trump. And it will continue to be, even when people die, and even when even when there is this uncontrolled clash. Because I will tell you, what makes me nervous is not the four-star general. It is the brand new guy right out of basic,
And
handle on
that's
the
what I'm
weapon
talking
in a
about.
live fucking
That's it.
confrontation, right? That they get riled up, they get angry. Maybe they're MAGA, maybe they have a lot of loaded charges. Bang, that can get you into a gunfire problem, right? Do I defend myself with my weapon? Somebody's pointing a gun at me. How do I deal with this? How do I de-escalate? They don't have they have some training, but it's very shallow. I've looked at it. I've
There's no
asked,
experience.
I've put in FOIA acts for exactly what comes from all of the armed forces for civilian interaction training, right? And I will tell you, it is not geared to invade cities. This
Right.
urban thing that you talked about at the beginning, these tests or
It's
these drills,
exercises.
yeah,
Yes.
thank you. Exercises is the
Mhm.
term.
Mhm.
These exercises are to simulate situations not within the United States as policing your own people, but rather in the event we have to drop into another country, be that in our case, the closest cities are European that model after us, and we model after you. I'm going to look at they're older, but there's a lot of reasons why you would want to use an Austin, Texas, or
Right.
a Chicago or whatever for military training exercises, not for the purpose of turning the military against their
Correct.
population. There's such a hypersensitivity in our world and has always been since 1770. And just soak in the number of years of drilling that into every kid's head, generation after generation after generation. I'll go, and that's been the thing that you learn is the military is not there to do their work on the American people. They're to
Correct.
defend the American people, and
And
that's
that
what we're
is
here.
yes, and that's what you were talking about. I totally agree with you because that top brass, those generals that know what the law is and they know what the
And,
Constitution
and and
is.
their hearts are in it, right?
Exactly. So of course they and see this was one of the things that some people were speculating that some of these generals might resign or something. I mean, I don't know all about that. And there was also the comment with Trump being like, well, if I don't like certain generals, I'll just fire them. Just, like yeah, like just talking like literally out of his butt.
Right.
But yeah, as usual. But at the same time, there my hope is that most of our military would uphold the Constitution, and how you mentioned the possible, like, MAGA soldier and anybody that has those kind of sensibilities. I hope that that is in the minority, because once it gets down to an unlawful order that gets issued, every single, from the top general to the private that's only been there for 2 days, all has they all have the duty to refuse an illegal order.
They're obliged to, under
Yes.
law, under penalty of martial law or
Yes.
court martial.
Yes.
So absolutely. Yeah, Lisa, you bring that home so well. And friends, I wanna tell you something that I feel at this grassroots level that there is a shift in the mindset that is showing through, that people are just getting weary. And I'll tell you what triggers it. Every single time I've been on the earth long enough to know it, and I've been studying economics, politics, sociology, etcetera, for a long time. And every time that this stuff sets in, the thing that makes it set in is economic pain. It starts with
Yeah.
economic pain. That's when shit gets real, to put it
Yeah.
in blunt terms to everybody here. And it's real for me. I cannot keep going to the grocery store every week and watching the price of ketchup
It's
go up
crazy.
20%. I mean, I'm gonna like buy one bottle of it's gonna be about this big by about this high of Heinz ketchup. It's just gonna be from Costco, and it's gonna be by the crate. I'm gonna walk out of there with it now and pray to God I use it all before the year, the year Rick dies, whatever year that is. So it's like, yeah, that's my mindset at this point, is like, buy the non-perishables. But that we can't continue. We can't sustain it. And the
Nope.
jobs and economic data came out today and had this giant mixed signal in it about there are questions. People are speculative about the BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, that put the data out, and whether or not it's accurate and accurate, right? I mean, the last time Trump didn't like the numbers, he killed the
Mhm.
messenger, shot her, and got rid of her. And so this time, JOLTS came out, BLS data came out, and it was the same scary stuff. Consumer sentiment tanked in September. There are some big, deep, concerning, wow, bad things going on in the economy. I actually asked, for some research, and did some research on my own here in Ohio, where I live, because there was a headline front page Sunday edition article on how consumers across Ohio are quantitatively data driven, um, cutting back radically on any kind of expense,
Of
acquiring a
course.
new vehicle, doing anything like getting replacement unless they have to of a washer or dryer. They're not upgrading to models. So those are the big, what they call durables in consumer stuff. And then the expendables, like the smaller stuff, the shelving, the parts, the stuff, everything from door handles to whatever, that all those commodity items, they're also cutting radically back on. So, just think about that for a minute. There's a huge wave coming. And what that does, friends, is that starts it right there, because it shows there's an economic pain. And that, once it inserts itself into the economy, begins the snowball effect going down the hill, where the lack of purchases by that same group of people, it's hard to realize it connects back to yourself, but it does at the end of the
It
day.
does.
Makes the companies produce less, which means they need fewer people, and there's less people needed to ship the stuff from point A to point B, and there are fewer people needed to sell the stuff at the ends points of sale, right? At the McDonald's cashier thing, they need one person there and three people instead of one. At the coffee Starbucks, they need two people instead of five or six. At the retail store, they need six people instead of 20. So then the jobs drop. What happens? Well, then we have even less money, and here the cycle goes over again and
Yep.
again and again. And that, I'm telling you, there are only a limited number of options. We do not have the luxury. Please remember this fact, friends, and I say this to you because I want us to think realistically. We blew an enormous amount of money at the economy out of thin air. We made it up
Yeah.
back in 2007. We did it again in 2021.
Mhm.
And friends, there is no more option to do the same thing in 2025 again, because those amounts took our debt from single digit trillions up to where it is now, like I talked about, 37 trillion. So that's a big one I'd like you to just think about. And we cannot really sustain without paying a lot of money in interest. We cannot borrow our way through this one. So we are going to need to buckle down.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
yeah. Oh, and Deborah made a comment I think is great. I have I love this, 4 hydroponic gardens with vegetables. I
Oh,
envy
that's
you.
wonderful.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
caught that, and I'm our producer got it, and I'm so thankful for the idea of that. I talked to my wife about it last last winter, and as we were going into it, I thought we need to set up hydroponic gardens in here. How can we do that? And she's like,
That's
"Well,
what I was thinking about too.
yeah, how do we?" And so there's a whole bunch of conversation we had about it, and then I tried to. She said, "Why don't we just try dirt and tomatoes this summer?" And they all died. So
Hmm.
clearly, we've got some green thumb issues going on from somebody. I'm not sure who, but might be sitting here. Anyway, I know we're a little bit over. Let me see if there's anything else that I wanted to cover today. Yeah, I talked about the jobs report.
Yeah.
There's a lot in there, a lot of detail. But right now, what's happening is essentially stag labor-flation, which is it isn't growing and it
Right.
isn't shrinking. The whole economy is still chugging kind of along,
It is.
but we'll see in upcoming reports whether or not that's true. And also, there's what I love is in the labor data, you always have more than one source. And for me as a data person, I don't like to ever look at like the Bureau of Labor Statistics and say, oh, well, they're right, just because they're who they
Mhm.
are. So tomorrow, I believe it is, we have the ADP, which is a data processing company. We have their report coming out
Oh.
on the jobs, and so they're like a good check and balance to the BLS data
Hmm.
because they're an independent source. They have no
Right.
they're not compelled to lie in any direction, particularly in favor of the government.
Mhm.
They want that information out there. So ADP is coming out in the middle of the week. There's a number of other reports that we can talk about. Um,
Awesome.
I like to keep you guys informed in that, and I think Lisa and I are really in sync on trying to give you useful information out of this stuff and not making it appear abstract. Just keep it there. About the military, by the way, here's my ending answer on that.
Okay.
Here's the end game. It is Trump's dream with an adjective in front of it. Trump's dream to align the flow of events between now and next November such that by the time we get to probably October of 26, he can safely declare martial law and vacate the elections.
Right.
Now, that only delays the problem. It doesn't solve it. And he, though, then can start doing things under martial law. And this requires this would require a ton of things to converge all perfectly to happen.
Mhm.
So I want to tell you in so many ways that the Roberts Court would have to completely fold to Trump on some of the existing lawsuits that are out there. That would be they might as well just go home and hang up their robes at that point. Don't bother because but their credibility in the rule of law in this country will be gone, and recovering from
Yeah.
that will take decades if they were to completely fold. So they're going to have to grow a spine or die, one of the two. Secondly, Congress is going to get its ass handed to it, both by Republicans and Democrats. Republicans, because those guys are MAGA fights and they're not resisting and they don't have spines. Democrats, because they're not loud enough and because
Right.
they're not consistent and because they have too complicated of a message that I'll get into another time, but there's a problem fundamentally with liberalism and what we call moderates who are in the center. And I
Mhm.
want to talk about that tomorrow night.
Yeah, that'd be
Write an
great.
article tomorrow morning, by the way, if you would. And I'm not trying to plug anything here excessively. I just want to say I write articles on certain days. Tomorrow will be one of them. I'm going to write this article about the evils of being a moderate in today's world. And that may sound like, oh boy, is Rick going to go off on some radical tangent? No, it's not about radical anything. It's about what moderation does to us and how it allows and gives us a permission slip for those of us that don't like conflict and don't like direct face-to-face war. We those people take the moderate path, or we tend to take the moderate path. I used to do this, and it
It's like a
has
perpetual Pollyanna.
right, because it allows you to pick the easy path, the agnostic, dip your toe in this religion if you think it
Mhm.
works here, or dip your toe in that, and that, folks, is going to kill us as a country if we do not eliminate moderate out of the picture for right now. I mean, there are times in history where it's not really that big of a deal, and that's
Right.
okay. But this is not one of them. So, friends, I would just ask you tomorrow if you could read my articles in the Adverse Action Daily. And I publish it usually, hopefully, dear God, all things converging right, approximately set between 7 and 8 a.m. And usually that's a miracle if it happens at all. But yes, it will happen. And so, Lisa, any
Yes.
closing thoughts? I'd love to hear from you. So
Yeah.
please.
No, I think this was a great show. You gave us some great information like you always do. I'm always
Thank
counting on
you.
Rick for the facts and the figures. Um, so I thought we covered a lot of things that people want to know about, especially in light of the meetings today and the looming shutdown that looks like it is going to happen. So
Right.
we'll talk about more of that tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to have this discussion about moderates.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, I if there's anything that exciting that happens, by the way, I may and I know I'll just check with Lisa and
Yeah.
we'll make up a game plan. But if there is anything exciting, I might just go straight to live tomorrow, or one of us will. But if we do that, you'll see the thing, the invite that we're there, and we'll cover that breaking news for you. I just wanted to let you know I'm trying to get more onto the actual timing of doing things through this media. All right.
Right. All
Everybody, I
right.
wish you, friends, thank you so much for joining. Have a great night, and we will talk to you here together, Lisa and I, soon. Yeah, have a good one.
Bye bye. Good night, everybody.